Good morning.
Um, Extreme misogyny is the phrase that's being used in most of the Sunday papers this morning. How would the government go about defining what is extreme misogyny as compared, I suppose, to more day-to-day misogyny? Morning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not keen on any misogyny, if I'm perfectly honest, but this is about looking at exactly what those definitions are and doing a piece of work to fill gaps that have been growing for a very long time. And lots of agencies, you cited Maggie Blythe and the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council, concerns there about the growing rise in sort of misogynistic attitudes amongst young men, largely because of online content that they're seeing. And this isn't, let me just be completely clear, about criminalising people who are showing signs of an ideology. It is about preventing that ideology. And this piece of work that the Home Secretary has announced today is about looking at the gaps. Now, bear in mind, we haven't had a countering extremism strategy written in our country since 2015, which was in fact the year I was elected 9 years ago. And the world changes massively. And actually, the likes of sort of, and I don't like to give any particular person any kudos, but the likes of this sort of online misogynistic trends that we have seen in the last 9 years are completely and utterly ignored by that. And so this is looking for the gaps and ensuring that we're doing everything to try and counter extremism before it turns to terrorism.
What would happen if, say, let's take the example of a teacher, the one that's often used. If a teacher believes that a pupil has been sort of brainwashed by some of the influences you're talking about, they're in the classroom expressing very contentious and pretty unpleasant views about women. What would happen? What would the responsibility on the teacher be in that situation if the definition of extremism was changed to include extreme misogyny?
Well, I mean, for a start off, the prevent duty already includes incel, which is the term for involuntary celibate, I think it is, which is where some of the very extreme, largely based in the US stuff comes from. But what a teacher, and in fact, teachers, the amount of teachers I meet every week in, week out, both in my constituency and across the country, who tell me they are seeing very worrying attitudes and don't feel they have the tools. This exercise that we are going to undertake is to ensure that the proper guidance and the tools are available to teachers. They are asking for it. Like I say, every week I meet teachers who say, what are we meant to do, and what strategies can we have to prevent this sort of thing? Now, and again, this is not, I'm the mother of teenage sons. You may be lucky to get a preview of one of them walking in as he gets out of bed and doesn't realise I'm on the media at any moment. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Like this is about having the tools as a government across government departments, whether that's what we do with tech companies, how we advise and guide teachers in what to do, of this growing trend of not just misogyny, but as your reporter said, Islamism and far-right ideologies, because it's just been hollowed out and teachers at the moment don't know what to do. But of course, if a teacher came across a pupil who was showing very severe signs of extreme misogynistic behaviour that they were concerned was going to, today they would act on that. That one would like to think that today they would act on that, but it's how you stop it from getting to that point.
I completely get there's a big educational sort of element to this, Jess, and the need to do more there. But I guess what I'm getting at is where do we draw that line between someone's opinions and someone's attitude, which we might not like, we might find abhorrent, but ultimately we live in a country where people are free to express opinions, on the one hand, and sort of police action and counter-terrorism intervention on the other? Is the line where we fear an attitude or an opinion is going to stray into a crime or an act of violence? Is that the line we have to draw?
Well, you just use the exact same test you would with far-right extremism and Islamism, wouldn't you? The same test would have to apply. And, you know, the idea that it's, I mean, people can hold their views about women that they, you know, all they like. And believe me, they let me know them all the time. I've had some choice emails just today, but there is, it's not okay anymore to ignore the massive growing threat caused by online hatred towards women, and for us to ignore it because we're worried about the line rather than making sure the line is in the right place, as we would do with any other form of extremist ideology. I think, it fails women and has failed women.
Yeah, I'm not for a minute suggesting we should ignore it.
Yep.
I guess it's just that question of how far do we police opinion and how far do we police. But somebody expressing what might be called a far-right opinion is probably not going to be arrested. Someone who acts that out by throwing bricks at police or attacking a mosque, that's clearly a very different picture. So I'm just trying to clarify that someone who holds what... there's
the line.
Yeah, that's the line, isn't it? So someone who holds extreme misogynistic views is not going to be arrested.
Well, unfortunately, in cases of people, luckily, thankfully, it is relatively rare, notwithstanding the recent outbreaks that we have seen. When extremist misogyny then goes to harming women, it would be really good to see, the response of our nation massively improving, which is why the government have made it a complete mission, cross-government mission, to halve the incidences of violence against women and girls. But we cannot just do it in a domestic space. We have to look at why these attitudes are growing and why specifically it seems that they are growing amongst the young. But we will look at all the evidence. What people like me have to face often when we talk about trying to ensure that one of the most voluminous crimes in our country, crimes against women, both sexual and physical violence and also psychological, is we have to constantly sort of justify why it matters as much as other crimes. Yeah. It is costing our country billions.
Jess, you talked about a lot of the radicalisation in this area and others happening online. The likes of, I'm not going to name them, but we know who these high-profile influencers are. These tech companies need to do far, far more than they're doing, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One part of this strategy has got to be looking at across how people are radicalised into these spaces, and these days, the vast majority of young people, as well as, in fact, almost all people, spend their life online. And so, tech companies are undoubtedly going to have to be part of the solution. And with the previous government's online safety bill, that still hasn't come into fruition yet into sort of real world actions. But we're going to have to make sure that is as robust as possible, because if my teenage sons watch something on the television, actually there is a far, far greater place for me to have that regulated and to know that can be trusted than when they're in their bedrooms and I have no idea what they're looking at. And the level of regulation is considerably lower at the moment. So there is going to be a lot of work that needs to be done on that.
Just lastly on that, your line's not the best, so we'll leave it after this. But on the on the online safety bill, are you suggesting that actually it might need to be toughened up further than the legislation that was passed by the Conservative government?
Well, look, we are going to have a look at, across the board, doing what the Home Secretary has set out in this sort of evidential sprint with both academics, experts in the field, and all of the agencies that deal with this, education and police and others, and look at where the gaps are and seek to fill them. I'm not going to preempt what it's going to say.
Thank you, Jess. Really appreciate your time this morning. That's Jess Phillips, Labour MP for Birmingham Yardley, Minister for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls, explaining, I thought, quite compellingly actually, why there is a need to treat some of these attitudes more, or take them more seriously than we are doing right now and have done up until now.